Hello snowboarders of the internet, I'm your host TC and today I will be reviewing the Bataleon Fly binding. I rode this binding at Copper Mountain where it was a sunny day that kind of turned a little bit overcast as the day went on, where we had fresh groomers that had a few icy spots in it that weren't too bad, and the runs were completely empty, so we had the whole thing to ourselves with honestly quite a bit of wind where chairlifts were moving real slow and blowing sideways. I used my Ride Fuse boots and my Jones Aviator board. The binding adjustability on this is pretty standard, I would say, where when it comes to the high back adjuster, aka forward lean adjuster, you just flip this tab, push it down, you get a little bit more forward lean, flip it back, that sort of thing. Same with on the straps, just a quick flip tab on both straps and you're all set to go. And then on the toes here, you do have a push pin system, so you can either get them centered over your toe or on top of the toe, whichever you really prefer. You can also adjust the heel cup by loosening the ankle straps here, and it'll slide in and out just to get that toe, or just to get that boot centered on your board. Overall, the straps are pretty solid, I would say, for being extremely minimalistic, where on the toe, you really don't have much like holding you in there, but it did grip my square toe box pretty well actually, where I didn't have it sliding up and down or anything. When I did try it on top of the foot, it was comfortable. I didn't get really any pressure points or anything like that. When we're talking on the ankle strap, it is a molded strap, so it's not gonna be the most comfortable thing out there, but I didn't really notice crazy pressure points or anything like that with it. So if that's a concern, keep that out. What I did notice on these straps is they did have quite a bit of lateral play to them. So you're not super locked in. You do have a little bit of movement there, but heel to toe movement, you do feel nice and responsive. Batalion's ratchets, they all work well to me, where they're not holding out any crazy technology on their higher end to their lower end, anything like that. They release really well, nice and easy to grip on it. When you're ratcheting in, it's huge, so you have no problem with one thumb, the whole hand, anything like that. I didn't notice any stripping or anything on the ladders when I would go and pretty much crank it down as tight as I could. The one thing I did notice, which I've noticed with all Bataleons, is once you get that last click in, when you go to release, it wants to hold on a little bit more just because of that force pushing against the teeth. It's not a big deal. You just feel locked in. Once it initially releases, you're all good to go and it'll freely let you out. Hey, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss anything that we have coming out. When we're talking high back on the fly here, when you just flex it in your hand, you're like, wow, this thing is soft. When you actually get it on your boot though, it does feel a little bit more responsive. You can tweak it side to side still, but it just has a little bit more hold than I really honestly expected with it. You can adjust the forward lean here just by flipping this tab. I will say it does take a little bit more effort than other brands to get it to pop down and adjust, but honestly, that's a good thing. I've seen so many brands where people are just standing in the lift line and that thing's just dangling, hanging out there. And honestly, this thing holds on really well. This binding is definitely gonna have quite a bit of lateral play to it, where you wanna press, you wanna do any of that stuff. It doesn't feel like it's really holding you in. You're gonna be putting in a little bit more effort there. Now, when you're going heel to toe, totally fine, feels nice and responsive there, but it does feel a little bit playful laterally, and it does cut down on quite a bit of vibrations underneath your feet there, because honestly, they have some of the best footbeds in the game. This binding rides extremely damp, where with this footbed, it's nice and thick. You don't really feel any micro vibrations, anything like that. And it's gonna be coupled with a nice dampening pad underneath. So that's twice the dampening. That is really cutting down on vibrations, really anything. I didn't feel shit through the bottom of this binding. Like, it surprised me with how damp it was. Probably gonna be the dampest binding on the market at this price point for sure. If you need that damp ride, I would look at this guy. This binding is literally for that that rider out there that just wants to kind of get surfy and have a very comfortable binding. Almost, I would say, pillows on their feet where they're not really feeling super locked in or anything like that. They're probably going to go in the park quite a bit, get jibby, tweak everything out, and just don't want to be locked into their board. If you enjoy our content, why don't you head on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP. Sure, I could explain it here, but we have a great video over there getting into it really in depth. Even though this binding was very soft laterally, I did really enjoy this thing where I found myself hauling ass down the mountain and then realizing it like almost after it was too late, being like, holy crap, I am actually going way too fast for this binding to almost keep up with, where it just cut down on all those vibrations, all that stuff, and then you just found yourself just going and like, oh, all right, let's pump the brakes because quite a bit of lateral play here. But honestly, if I was back in the Midwest, this would be a perfect binding for the tow rope, honestly. In my opinion, I said honestly way too many times there. Comparable bindings: the Union Strata, the Jones Meteorite, and the Salomon District. This has been my review of the Bataleon Fly binding. If you enjoyed it, make sure you go and check out one of our comparable bindings.